I want to thank Dr. Bimal and Dr. Munja for inviting me to talk about this thing. So today I'll be basically talking on the uncertainties in connecting climate change with human health impacts. Tarun has already mentioned about the possible health effects of aerosol particles. Now let me clarify at the beginning that I'm not an epidemiologist. My interest is also on the aerosols, and so I will speak more on the air quality related issues in this talk. But just to give you some brief introduction about the connections between the climate change and various health issues. So if you really see, one of the major impact what people are predicting of the climate change is on the changing patterns of the water and vector-borne diseases. Now, I guess Professor Rohis Akhtar will speak more on this topic tomorrow. So, how in a warming climate that change we notice in the water and vector-borne diseases. Then there are also connection of the climate change to the extreme events. For example, heat stress. So, if the temperature is increasing, particularly in the summertime, you will see much more hot days, and that really challenges a human, the physiology. And how that may be fatal or maybe non-fatal, but it may be related to a very important health aspects. Then there is also a relation between the climate change and the air quality, which in this talk I will focus more. And finally, there is also some indirect impacts on human health. For example, people are predicting that in a climate change scenario, there will be more number of intense rainfall events. Now, if that happens, then definitely there will be some indirect impacts through flooding and flood-related mortalities and so on and so forth. Another example may be for these indirect impacts through agricultural. So there are also IPCC reports on the issue of the malnutrition and all these things due to agricultural shortage and all this. So there are a lot of debates, particularly for the indirect impacts. But as far as the air quality is concerned, okay, so I just took this numbers from this paper published in Healthcare. Now in US, people have calculated the healthcare cost only for the disaster events related to the climate change. Now what are these disaster events? These disaster events is basically weather related events, particularly these extreme events, either hurricane related deaths and all these things, or cyclones and so on and so forth. So all meteorological events. And still the cost for the last 7 years is huge. And people are actually trying to predict what will be the healthcare cost for all these climate change impacts. Now that is a really challenging job, given the fact that there are lots of uncertainties in connecting all these dots. And I will specially focus on the uncertainties involved in the air quality field. Now when we say air quality, if you look at the air pollutants which really impact our human health, these are the gaseous pollutants which Tarun also mentioned, and this is the particulate matter. Now in the last 30 years, this is the global statistics, you can see there is a significant decrease in some of these pollutants. For example, CO. And this is basically the impact of various stringent policy measures that has been taking place in US and Europe and many other places. Another classic example is the reduction in the lead concentration, and that is because previously lead was used in the fuels. Now it is not, it is banned and all this. So you can see really 98% reduction in from 1970 to 2002. So globally, these major air pollutants have reduced, including the aerosols. And since my emphasis is on aerosols, we can also see as the emission of aerosols have reduced over the years, this is also reflected in the satellite data. If you remember, Dr. Tripathi was also mentioning about the aerosol optical depth. That is the measure of the number concentration of particles in atmosphere. So what it shows basically the satellite measurement of that particular parameter in the y-axis, and you have the years. So if you really noticed, now these two peaks are actually the volcanic eruption. You see the Mount Pinatubo eruption in 92, which emits huge amount of aerosols in the atmosphere. This is also El Chichen eruption. But if you really focus after 93, there is a globally decreasing trend in the aerosol concentrations. But the question remains that can this global trend be considered for health impact assessment at the local levels? And I will show some example from India where the trend is completely opposite. India is very few places in the world right now where aerosols have in fact increased at a very large rate over the last 10 years. Because in India we do not have data. Now this global data is basically over the ocean, I should also mention. Now again coming to the air quality related health issues. So this is a very recent paper published in Environmental Health Perspective, where the authors have calculated the premature mortality due to the air pollution, and particularly the aerosols which Tarun was talking about. And this is a model based study, but now there is a lot of debate also about the numbers, and this is the number of mortality per year calculated based on the existing emission data. If you emit so much of aerosol in the atmosphere, what could be the mortality? But there may be debate about the numbers, but what is clear actually from this figure is that certainly India is a hotspot. India, the eastern part of China, and some of the European cities, and you can also notice the industrial belt of the United States. So these four areas, but compared to these places, you can see in India the values are much higher. So it's a real concern in the context of Indian. Now,
how come, sorry, can I?
Yeah, sure.
Someone is disturbing the figure that you have shown for India. That highest concentration in the Himalayan region.
No, this is the Indo-Gangetic plain. This is Indo-Gangetic. Himalaya is here. Okay. This is the Indo-Gangetic plain. Now, while
what are the causes?
Causes what they are actually not. I mean, it's basically simple. So this is the region where Dr. Tripathi was also showing highest amount of aerosol is present. So if you have more aerosol, definitely, I mean, you expect much more mortality related to the air quality. People are, and 70% of India's population actually resides in the Indo-Gangetic plain.
And socio-economically very poor.
Yeah. So there are many aspects attributed. Now the important question is that, now why this study I chose? Why I chose this study? Because this study has thrown some numbers which actually raise many debates. For example, people argued that many assumptions are involved in making these estimates. For example, when we calculate mortality based on the particle concentrations, we really do not know about the exposure response function. Serious issue about predicting about the future. So what I believe is, even looking into the future, let's first consider the present day scenario, right? And what are the issues in addressing that problem? Now, as I said, I will focus on India. 10 years ago, Smith et al., this is a very famous paper published in PNAS, Kirk Smith, he has calculated that around 500,000 people die from the indoor air pollution in India per year. So this is a very famous paper. After that, there are a lot of indoor air pollution related studies picked up in India. Now over the last year, if you looked about the outdoor particulate pollution, which Tarun was also mentioning, there is no really robust quantitative estimate for the entire country. Very few studies really have focused on selected cities. For example, Kalpana Balakrishnan study in Chennai. Only 2 or 3 cities have a robust data set to really look on these issues, like how much the aerosol concentrations which we breathe will affect the not only the mortality but also various cardiovascular and respiratory disease. So this is really not known in India. Now you can argue that CPCB is doing a lot of measurements across India, and basically this is the CPCB. So in all states CPCB have sites, but really if you look at the spread of the CPCB, that is the Central Pollution Control Board sites, they are mostly concentrated on the cities. Like in Delhi has 6 or 7 sites, in Chennai they have 7-8 sites. So all these sites are really concentrated on cities, and we really do not have any idea what is going on in the rural areas. So that is a big challenge to Indian context, and Tarun has already mentioned this diagram where pollution enter. But my point is that if we want to improve the estimate of health due to the particulate pollution, we must focus on the fine particles. That is the particle size less than 2.5 micron. So if that is so, and looking in the Indian context, what we need and what is the state of the art knowledge. So I have made these two tables. You see, the requirement is that we should have a very robust PM 2.5 data at very high spatial and time interval. For example, at least we need data for each 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer area to really make a good estimate. What we really have right now is that continuous measurements are going on only 6 cities across India. Nothing is there in the rest of the India. So we really do not have robust continuous data sets to do this kind of studies. Second, we need a robust health data equally at such high spatial and temporal resolutions. What are the health data? For example, mortality, admission record, the kind of diseases people, like the cardiovascular diseases, respiratory illness. So those kind of data we really need at very high resolution. Again, present status, hardly any data are available. The data is very difficult to get the data, and there is actually India is facing challenge because there is a clear-cut communication gap between the scientific community and the medical fraternity. I am sure those data are available, but at the moment, hardly. I mean, if even I personally also tried to get those kind of data at from various hospitals, like in Delhi, Safdarjung Hospital and AIIMS. I know I can get some data, so there is a really good hope, but I don't know about other cities and what kind of data are available. So that is the biggest challenge right now. So if we have these two data sets, then at least for the present day scenario, we can calculate how much impact we expect from the particulate matter. Once we understand that, then the next step is that we correctly predict the future concentration using some climate models. And that what also the speakers from the first session were mentioning, to predict the future. And just I want to mention that even the present status is that no climate models can accurately represent the present day aerosol distribution over India. So there is also a challenge to improve that scenario also. And now I will basically focus on this aspect because as I said, I am not epidemiologist. So my interest is to how to fill this huge data gap in India. And for that actually I looked into remote sensing data, the satellite data, as a potential tool for estimating the surface PM 2.5 concentration. Now let me just give you a brief example how remote sensing data is used. Now satellites measure this quantity, the aerosol optical depth, which again I am coming back to, that is the columnar concentration of aerosols. Typically what people have done in past is that if they have co-located measurements of surface PM 2.5, then they simply develop some empirical relationship between measured values of PM 2.5 with the satellite measured AOD. Now once you have the empirical relationship, then you apply that kind of relationship in other places also, where you do not have the surface measurements. So that is the typical methodology people have adopted. Now this methodology works very well in countries like Netherlands or other places. Problem in India is that, like Kumar et al., they have also tried to follow same methodology in Delhi. Now you see here you can actually see a very good relationship, but in Delhi there is a huge scatter of data between again. So this is in log scale, same thing, PM 2.5 and satellite measure optical depth. You really cannot make out a good empirical relationship from this kind of scatter plot. Why this is a problem? Because in India we have aerosols spread up to 4-5 kilometers in the atmosphere. Now remember what we are trying to do here, we are trying to correlate surface concentration with the entire columnar. In entire atmospheric column, if you have particles at higher altitude, that actually jeopardizes the relationship. And this is actually one example from another satellite, Calypso. So this is the Indo-Gangetic plain, and this color shows high aerosol concentration. But typically what it shows, actually aerosols are spread up to 4.5 kilometers. So we need improved association between columnar optical depth and surface concentration, and that's where we started this research. What we tried to do, we will use the satellite data, and for this case I use the MISR satellite sensor, which is multi-angle imaging spectrometer. This is a NASA sensor, which basically has these 9 different camera angles looking downwards to the south. And aerosol retrieval, before applying for these studies, we have looked into the aerosol characteristics. We have extensive validation of the aerosol data. So we have confidence about the aerosol optical depth measured by this sensor. So I will not go into details that aspect. So I will just keep this figure. So let me tell you that this sensor measures aerosol optical depth at 17.6 kilometer resolution. So 17.6 by 17.6 kilometer, you get the aerosol optical depth retrieval. From there I will demonstrate how we got the surface PM2.5. So what we get, actually we use the GeoSchem chemical transport model. We consider the emission inventories, the current meteorology, which is plugged into the model, and the model then predicts the surface concentration as well as the columnar optical depth. Now the vertical distribution of aerosol in the atmosphere is constrained by the Calypso measurements, and this figure just shows that how the model derived vertical distribution, which is in the blue, matches well with the satellite measured vertical distribution of aerosols, particularly in the Asian region. Now the model is constrained by the vertical distribution, and model is simulating the columnar optical depth. We match that with the satellite measured values. So what we get basically, and we did it for the 5-6 years of data sets, and finally for various emission conditions, meteorology and day and all this seasonal influence, we derive the conversion factors. Now what is the advantage of doing this? Because remember I said we need a better association of optical columnar concentration with surface. Now that association is influenced by all these parameters. Previously, if you simply try to build up some empirical relation, all these factors are really not considered. Now this conversion factor which we derived actually considers all the possible factors which can influence that kind of relationship. Now once we get the conversion factor, the job is easy. Then if you get the optical depth, you simply multiply by this conversion factor, you get the daily PM2.5. Now once this method is there, what we did actually, we calculated the satellite derived PM2.5 and compared with the available ground based measurements from Kanpur and Delhi. We have very few points, but what we noticed is actually the satellite derived methodology is actually under predicting the surface concentrations. But if that is a bad thing, the good news is that when we calculated how much we under predict, which is shown here in the y axis, versus the real measurement, we see that the error is very systematic. So if the error is systematic, then we can actually correct that error. So we did this bias correction and calculated the surface PM2.5 and computed the decadal statistics. So this figure just summarizes the 10-year average value distributed over the entire region. So this is the mean annual PM2.5. Now remember what Tarun has also mentioned, the Indian standard is 65 microgram. So 65 is somewhere here. So any color in sky blue and above is actually very high values. So you can see really the spread of the very high concentration of PM2.5 in the entire Indo-Gangetic plain, and these values are in much higher range. Now what is the WHO guidelines? WHO threshold is actually 10 microgram, and they have this 3 range. Why this 3 range? Because the WHO derive these thresholds based on the mortality exposure response functions studied in the United States and some European cities. So what they say is that if a person is exposed between 15 to 25 microgram per meter cube values, they have a 3% higher mortality risk compared to a clean condition. Similarly, if you are exposed to 25 to 35, mortality risk increases. And this is the highest threshold they are making, 15% higher mortality risk with respect to air quality guidelines. Now the question is that if we follow these WHO guidelines, we see that almost entire India is above these thresholds. For example, this highest threshold, you see the population, I actually overlap the population distribution. Now you can see 367 million people are actually above these threshold values. And this is in the urban population. You add the rural, semi-urban and rural population, so now you see almost 50% of India's population lives in a condition where they are exposed at the highest threshold. The question comes, if we want to apply these thresholds for policy and other things, can we really trust these mortality values? Now there are several recent studies which shows that if the background concentration is very high, then probably the human being is more resistant to the pollution levels. So this exposure response function which we are talking about, it shows a non-linearity. How much, we really do not have any ideas. Again, coming back to the episodic nature of the pollution, so you can see basically not only the annual concentration is high, but almost 70-80% of the year you have pollution level exceeding these threshold values. So this is just some of the statistics for the 10 big cities in India. You can see the PM 2.5 concentrations for these cities. Now surprisingly, you see Pune, like Chennai has very low values, Bangalore has very low values. Now coming back to this, so if we got a very robust database, now the next step is to look at how this, because we have 10 years of data, so our immediate interest was to see how the data, how the pollution level has changed over this 10-year period. So what I am showing here is the seasonal trends in AOD for the 4 seasons. What you notice really is there are seasonal hotspots. For example, the increase, so red color is basically showing the increase, this color. So it is not increasing everywhere. Although from emission point of view, we notice that like the population have increased in this region, we know the emission is increasing over the years. But what we notice in terms of aerosol is not increasing everywhere. And there comes the importance of meteorology. And that is very important for the policy makers to consider the role of meteorology in redistributing the pollutants in addition to emission. For example, if you look at Bihar and you take the emission data of Bihar, you cannot explain this amount of increase which is observed in Bihar only based on emission data from Bihar. Because what is happening, pollution is actually transported from Delhi and Punjab in the winter time all along the Indo-Gangetic plain, and as it enters Bihar and West Bengal, these pollution are subsiding due to the meteorological. So you cannot really blame everything on the local pollution sources. So these things lead to uncertainty in the future projections, and these things must be considered in terms of these things. And now I will just quickly go through this. So these changes is actually when we calculated in terms of life expectancy. We noticed some trends in the last 10 years. So when we try to calculate how much that will impact the life expectancy, we noticed that there is no exposure response relationship existing in India. So we try to find out, okay, let's use the study which is done in US and apply. And if we apply, then you notice these 5 regions where due to increasing concentration of PM 2.5, there is a decrease in the life expectancy in the order of 1 year. For example, this region you can identify. Now the question is again coming, how realistic are these response functions, or can you really trust these exposure response functions for India? So I will just summarize the uncertainties. For example, I just demonstrated that satellite data can be used for such kind of studies, but you must remember that satellite data are also have uncertainties. For example, satellites can only measure aerosol in clear condition. If you have clouds, you cannot get any data. But really, a person at surface is breathing air pollutants both in clear and cloudy conditions. So those scenarios must be considered again if we want to project for future. That means, and then again there is also error in satellite retrieved optical depth, which will translate into uncertainties, and finally these conversion factors which I just described. That conversion factor may also change in future. We cannot say similar conversion factor will hold true for future. So this is the methodology part, but for the health impact thing, I already discussed that the mortality risk due to exposure as estimated by WHO, it may not be true. So we need to develop our own exposure response function as a function of various socio-economic variables, for example, lifestyle, age, personal habits, like if it's smoker versus non-smoker. And this can be only done by the cohort studies which Torun was mentioning. And we need really many more such studies. And finally, I also like to mention that health impacts is also related to the particle compositions. So what we really need to do is we need to improve the representation of the distribution of aerosols in the climate models for future scenarios. And these are the tasks which are needed to be addressed at the very moment. For example, we need to, and I don't want to show this thing, so we are doing some regional climate modeling to address these issues. Next point is that we have to incorporate the emission trends in the climate models. And for that we must improve the aerosol cloud this precipitation interaction and other processes. Most important issue what I want to mention is that for future, even if we consider that the emission will increase at this present rate, what will happen? We really do not know. If the emission increases at that rate, how much that will influence the meteorology. Meteorology means about the atmospheric stability and the temperature, because that is very, very important for the health impacts. Even if you have same aerosol concentrations, if the boundary layer is very stable, it is much prone to the health impacts. Second important factor is the cloud. Now why cloud is important? Because cloud also has a feedback on meteorology. So we must get all these connections very correct. Then only for future we can predict a very good air quality. So let me end my talk by saying this, that there is some effort from the Indian community particularly to build up this health data taken by DST. They are trying to build up a knowledge network focusing on various aspects of the climate change and health impacts. You can see from this list, and this is a good start, but given the magnitude of the problem at hand, the main important point is that we have really shortage of manpower. So I mean the students who are present here, they can take this as a very serious challenge, because so many issues and so many uncertainties we have to handle before even predicting the current scenario. Forget about the future. So I will just stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have got 7 to 8 minutes maximum for discussion. Yes, Sanjay.
You said that aerosol concentration is very high along indoor density trains. What is the reason? Why it is so high? I mean, from the economics point of view, if you see industrial activity is probably not as high as it would be in western and southern part of the country. Vehicle penetration is not that much high, so vehicular pollution is also not that much high. So what are the main reasons of very high concentration?
Yeah, main reasons is actually a combination of 3 factors, which are the emission, meteorology and the topography. Now typically, as you were correctly mentioning, the southern state, for example Kerala and all those places, I don't have that figure actually with me, but I can, yeah. So this is a trend, but in the JGR paper I have shown the climatology. If you look at the climatology 10-year average picture, what you will notice is actually very in the winter time the aerosol concentration is very low in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, which are, there are a lot of industry and all these things. The reason is again the meteorology. What is happening in meteorology? The wind is actually flushing out the aerosols into the oceans. So from that perspective, it is better there. But what's happening in the India, the Indo-Gangetic plain, you have the Himalaya here, and you have the Vindhyan and the mountain regions here. So basically, whatever pollution is emitted in these places. Now remember, it's not only the industrial emissions. There is also emissions, lot of emissions from the biofuel, that what also Dr. Tripathi was showing. So that also emits lot of aerosols. On top of that, there is also emissions from the local soils, this emission of the dust particles. So there is a huge dust concentration emitted from the local soils all along the Indo-Gangetic plain, particularly in the rural areas, when you have a lot of dust emitted from rural
Are they
areas.
really fine particles?
No, they are coarse particles.
So if they are coarse particles, it may not hurt much.
Yeah, it may, from health perspective it may not be important, but from climate perspective again it's very important. Also dust is coming from Thor desert and as far as the Middle East. So combination of all these actually lead to very high aerosol concentration in the Indo-Gangetic.
So in that sense, from broader policy point of view, government should not encourage a lot of industrial activity in this region because, according to you, the climatic condition is such that it cannot flush away the
Exactly. Particularly these two seasons, the meteorological condition is like that the aerosol will remain in the atmospheric column. It will not flush out. What happens in pre-monsoon season basically? You will see dust is transported over the oceans, and there is also flushing out of some of the pollution to the Bay of Bengal, but not in the winter and post-monsoon seasons. So if you even emit something, and most, the critical area is actually from eastern UP up to the Bangladesh. So that is the region where you have all the pollutions are transported and getting confined close to the surface.
So, but the northern part of Pakistan, the flush rate doesn't apply here, because if you come to the Indian Punjab and come to the western Punjab, you find that aerosol concentration in Indian Punjab is much more than the western Punjab.
Oh, this is not the aerosol concentration. That's what I say. This is the trend. If you look at the aerosol concentration, that kind of distinction is not there. So this is the trend. Now these trends are not significant also. This green and yellow, you can see these colors are not significant. That's why I mentioned here by p values. So any color in blue, it shows significant decrease, and anything from here up to this red color is actually significant increase. So that is my point. Emission has been increased manifold in the last 10 years, but that we are not seeing in the aerosol because meteorology is redistributing things. For example, you see ocean. Over ocean we see this. This is the actually flushing out of the pollution. Even from Mumbai, you see pollution is flushed out over ocean from Kerala and on these places. So that is why in over ocean we are seeing this high increase. So
it's a good idea to have industries in coastal areas.
No.
I mean, from air quality point of view.
yeah, air quality point of view, definitely. The coastal areas are much better than the mainland. So that is the point. You have to keep in mind the meteorology because that plays a very, very important role.
Varun has something.
So in one of your earlier slides, you had those 5 sensitive zones
Oh.
in India,
Mm-hmm.
and
This.
and you see on the west coast, precisely where you are saying it is flushing out,
Mhm.
you describe that as an industrial belt, and is it in terms of life impact on life expectancy?
Yeah, although aerosols have been flushed out from this region, but if you look at the overall trend, basically in the last 10 years, it shows it shows actually some increasing trend in this region. But then remember that's actually my point is that we use this exposure response function. So I am not
This
sure.
may not be correct actually, because
So that's not my
What
point.
applies
So
for US may not
although
apply
we
for
try
India.
to have some estimate, because really there is absolutely no idea, and that's my actually suggestion. We must improve this exposure response relation for good health impact assessment studies. We cannot apply same exposure response function to the entire India also.
Actually, something similar happened just last week in Bombay, when they said that the dust from Oman had come across the ocean, and
Yes.
Bombay was experiencing
That
That is
haze,
very true.
which
I
is-
don't have that satellite image also. It was very clear that dust is actually coming
even
from.
Delhi, I mean,
So
Yeah, in
Delhi is
Delhi.
used to dust.
Yeah.
Mumbai is not. and Mumbai got it not from Delhi, but across
Across the Oman. So yeah, there was a very nice, actually, if you just Google the dust storm event just few days ago, Modi's image. There is a fantastic Modi's image showing a dust plume is actually coming from Oman, transporting across the Arabian Sea and entering Mumbai and those places. So very correct.
Well, what I would like to say, your point, industries are not located on the basis of these pollution factors. That would have been the case. There would have been no industry here in Kanpur, which is polluting again the river water. But there are certain other factors for the location of industry. What is important here, if you try to superimpose the picture of level of socio-economic development over there, then only you will be able to identify certain hotspots. Because more important here in your map, which you have nicely prepared, the question why, and that the question, the answer of why is lacking here, why certain areas, you rightly said about this industrial belt, western coastal area, but why it is so.
Yeah.
So unless we are trying to answer this question,
Exactly.
for that I'm sure, the belt we have shown, the northern Indo-Gangetic, that is the part of what the demographer Ashish Ghosh has said, the Bimaru states. Very low socio-economic development. So what kind of biofuel is used by the
Yeah, because some of
population
this,
is
for
that
example, Odisha, which
You have to
was shown.
explain that.
Exactly.
No, that is the reason we don't know. I mean, whether uses of biofuel in rural areas is really the reason. I mean,
Yeah,
scientists has
that's
done
why
that.
more important is to conduct those field studies in those
Yeah.
Is it
hotspot
mean
areas.
that 300, 500 years back, when society was more poor, pollution was more?
Mhm.
I mean, according to you, if Indo-Gangetic Plain is a place of poor people, pollution is more, and that probably is the explaining factor. But in my view, that should not be the case, because poorer the society was before, 100 years back or 500 years back, probably pollution, ambient air pollution was much low, and ambient air quality was much better.
Yeah,
So I mean,
But the reason was
Because
population was very, very low.
Population was also
very,
very
very
low.
low. Now the poor is significant.
so I mean, it's not that population density is highest only in this. I mean, even Kerala has very high population
but the
This is
density.
number
one of the highest.
number of poor people has also increased. The percentage of poor people,
But it was very like, the socio-economic condition it comes, it gives you the whether you would survive because whether you will have food or not.
Yeah.
Or this is
Yeah, that
giving
is
you whether you
my
would survive
point. I
because
mean,
of-
you
so
can.
have to
That's what I
superimpose
also
what
suggested.
is
You
the
cannot
highest
blame in
price.
everything like this area, rural Bihar and all those places.
Is it because of dust? Is it because of the?
It is because of all these three. It is because of all three. All three means first there is also emission from the biofuels and all these things. Plus there is also emission transported, pollution transported from these places. And third is basically dust. So rural area always have dust. So from health point of view, okay, dust are just coarse-sized particles, so that is a good thing. But from climate point of view, that is another, I mean, interesting aspect
Dr.
too.
Gupta has an input.
Yeah, I just want to just a clarifier. Whatever we have is the data. This is real data. This is what has been observed. So yes, Indo-Gangetic is the most dirty part of the world, not only India.
India, yes.
Second thing, we know as a emission inventory, we're lacking a lot. We do not have even zero level emission inventory for India. Every time we run models, we take data or emission, either exposure metrics or what is coming off out of cow dung or from burning diesel vehicles. We don't have Euro 5 vehicle in India. Even in Kanpur, you see a lot of green tempos running, but they are just painted green. They are not CNG. We have adulteration in the fuel. This is a matter of fact. This is truth. You go in the rural areas, you go to Calcutta. We have still ambassadors running as taxis. We have really bad shape as far as Indo-Gangetic trend is concerned. Somebody said about Bimaru. Yes, you go to Pune, you go to Ahmedabad, you go to Bangalore, and you go to Gorakhpur or you go to Kanpur.
Is it
Things
also?
are really different.
Really different.
What kind of industry we need? We can have industry here as long as they have good after treatment devices. We can have any kind of industry. Why not?
No,
If US can have it in Atlanta, they can have it in San Francisco, in the California Bay where the meteorology is really bad. They can have industry there, then why not in Kanpur?
My
We can
point
have.
is it the problem with the data which you have because you are using satellite data and then using converting it into ambient air quality data because you have a lot of coarse particles and you have a lot of high concentration showing in, on your pictures and you are drawing some conclusion based on that even in terms of health hazards. So is it the case that that may not be the best thing to do for Indo-Gangetic Plain?
No,
because
let-
we have a lot
okay.
of dusty environment.
Okay. No, let me
and-
let me answer to this question. No, in fact, the satellite data actually under predicts the concentration compared to ground-based measurements because ground-based measurements are considered to be the most accurate. Those measurements have suggested even higher concentration, which I was showing there. So people have been measuring at several places. For example, Kanpur has the highest amount of data for aerosol. If you measure,
My issue is because a lot of coarse particles are there which are not dangerous as far as health is concerned.
Now, I would like to comment.
yeah, that is also. I mean,
There
it is
are-
not known.
There are recent toxicological studies coming from several places in US and Europe, in fact, where even coarse particles have been shown to be toxic.
Yeah,
In
that
fact,
is also not known.
Mexico City, if you Google, there will be like series of paper coming from Mexico City, where all the things that we thought that we are learned and we know it's only the fine particle. People have shown epidemiological studies coming out from Mexico where coarse particles have shown health effects.
So cleaning the dust which are lying
Remember,
on the road is
coarse
not-
particle is not just soil. It has whatever has come out of the fuel, vehicle exhaust. It has mixed with the dust.
Dust.
Whatever like tobacco we are chewing and throwing in the Kacheri area, the whole soil has become red. You don't know what kind of metals is out there. It is being resuspended and we are breathing that. So don't think it's a like innocuous dust. It's not just dust. There's a lot of things have mixed.
Yeah, I
with
think
the
the
soil.
Can we
better
say
is to
that-
use the polluted dust.
The corruption, poor education, and all these factors are
Socioeconomic factors are
socioeconomic
definitely
factors are
Yeah.
one of the responsible.
Yeah, this is very important. In fact, the socioeconomic.
This area is most prevalent for tuberculosis. And imagine like if traveling in the same tempo which is overloaded anyway, even one person is having tuberculosis, like what is the fate of rest of them? If they are not affected, they are carrier. No systematic study has been carried out in Kanpur to really find out how many sitting in this room are actually carrier for tuberculosis. Really
it's scary.
It is very scary.
Totally scared of
But
gigantic
but the thing is that is the magnitude of the problem we are facing.
Yeah.
So,
And so the soil type in this Indo-Gangetic region is alluvial, mostly alluvial. So the soil type may be having some kind of contribution to this problem. Because
Alluvial soil has something to do with that.
No, no,
the southern
no.
parts of the
I don't think. Yeah, if it is pure, soil, it will be basically silicate and the other thing.
I'm afraid I have to stop here. I feel very awkward. The seminar has picked up, and there are so many subtle and gross points. There is no end to it, but I must end it. Thanks to both the speakers. Thanks to everyone who